let's start talking about this Europa League squad, because it's a squad that absolutely baffles me, to be honest. I just don't get it whatsoever, the selection that Ange has made. I guess we'll start off with going through the squad. So if we can bring up the graphic of the squad. So this is the 23-man squad. Obviously, we can only pick 23 men because we've only got 2 club-trained players, which is Brandon Austin and Alfie Whiteman, with Ollie Skip leaving the club. So there you have it on screen. It's Vicario, Forster, Austin, Whiteman, Dragoshin, Udogi, Romero, Porro, Davis, Van der Ven, Son Heung-min, Yves Bissouma, Madison, Gray, Bergvall, Decky, Brennan, Wilson, Odobert, Pape Matasar, Rodrigo Bentancur, Richarlison, Timo Werner, and Dominic Solanke. And the surprise exclusion was Jed Spence and Sergio Reguilon, which everyone knew he wasn't going to be added to this squad. Huh? It's madness.
Maybe one of Whiteman or Austin can play left back.
Yeah, maybe. But you're looking at it, right? And it's like Jed Spence, Ange has spoken highly of him in the build-up to the season, saying, he's done nothing wrong. He's done really well in pre-season, and we saw for our own eyes, every time he's been on the pitch, he's impressed, to be honest. And I just don't get the thinking of picking 4 goalkeepers, and not only 4 goalkeepers as well. You've got Luka Gunter in the B list as well. So that's 5 keepers essentially that we've taken into Europe. Did Gunter not go on loan? No, he stayed.
Keeley went out on loan.
Keeley went out on loan. Yeah.
It's very frustrating. It's really frustrating from a point of view where, first of all, if Spence is going to be here and he's going to be part... What's going on here? Oh, that's TikTok. Apologies. If Spence is going to be here, then he's going to want minutes. He's going to want to prove that he's can be part of a squad and he can earn a place. He's come in because we believe he can fill in at right back and left back. Now, obviously in the Premier League, there's a lot of games, but I'm sure, Udogi and Porro, majority of those games, they're going to be starting as long as they're fit. So his chances were always going to come in the Cups and Europa League. That's when he was going to get his opportunity to impress. And I feel like we've basically just hampered his opportunities to get minutes in this team because we've got 4 keepers, 5 if you include Josh Keeley. And I understand...
Gunter.
If you include Gunter. I understand, Forster is the most experienced out of all the keepers we've got. You could probably say he's still on number 2. Maybe he's got a clause in his contract or something that he has to play the cup games. I don't know, and that's a speculation. But understand, Ange is going to want experience as your number 2 goalkeeper. But you've given Austin a new 5-year deal. You've kept Whiteman around. I know it's because of the homegrown numbers. I understand why they've been kept around. I'm under no illusion that we believe they're here because we believe they're going to be future goalkeepers for Tottenham in the first team. But you've given them, especially Austin, a 5-year deal. He's played in pre-season and looked decent. Why not allow him just to be the number 2 goalkeeper in Europa League and give Jed Spence that opportunity to impress? Because Jed Spence is going to be needed. Udogi can't play every game. Porro can't play every game. We're going to need the backup fullbacks to fill in certain situations. And now it means, basically, with Spence out, if we want to rotate, it still means we can't rotate everyone. One of those back 4 are going to have to play. And it also means that Jed Spence, it's going to hamper his ability to show what he can do. It's going to hamper his development as well. Because as much as he's a player who's played a lot of first-team football, you've got to remember for Tottenham, he hasn't played a lot of first-team football. So he's still got to learn that role. He's still got to develop. He's still going to need minutes in the team to kind of learn the way Spurs play, especially under Ange Postecoglou, and get fit into the team. And it'd be much better if he can do that in Europa League than doing it in Premier League. And he's a player who can play right back and left back. We only have Udogi at the moment. I know Davis obviously is also a left back, but under Ange he's predominantly being a centre back. We don't really see him as a left back, I think, anymore. So for me, it's very frustrating that Ange has taken the decision that instead of leaving out Forster and allowing Austin to be number 2 and Whiteman number 3, he's put Forster in and completely left Jed Spence out when now we only have 6 defenders in this Europa League squad and you're taking away Gents' chances to impress. It's almost as if like we've given Spence the opportunity of a second life at Tottenham and then we've cut off an arm or cut off one of his legs and like made it even harder for him to actually get opportunities. And that's the most frustrating thing. If you're going to have him here, then allow him. Look, who's more likely to be the future of Tottenham? Is it Spence or Forster? It's Spence.
Fraser Forster, of course. Of course, he's the future of Spurs.
Come on, like we got to be realistic here. Why Like, is Forster so important to the team that he has to be involved in the Europa League squad? I guess Ange's argument will be he's a important, experienced member of the team. He's our number 2. If Vicario gets injured here, or he might have been playing a lot of Europa League games, and Austin and Whiteman aren't ready, so we need Forster to be available if an injury comes, and that's more valuable than having Jed Spence available. But for me, I just disagree with that, to be honest.
Yeah, if that's the statement and the sentiment Ange is going for, I think he's got it completely wrong. Completely wrong. How can you take 4 goalkeepers into Europe? There's the gulf in quality between Fraser Forster and Brandon Austin isn't that big, in my opinion. I don't think Fraser Forster has ever come in and looked like a keeper that we want to rely on. Brandon Austin, he's coming in pre-season, he's looked okay. In certain games, he's looked, a bit out of his depth in certain games as well. But I don't think there's a massive gulf in quality between the 2 goalkeepers, in my opinion.
I mean, I don't know if there's enough to suggest that. Forster's an experienced Premier League goalkeeper. He's been there for many years. He's played in the Champions League.
Is all he's got on his side, though. Like, in terms of goalkeeping ability, particularly with playing out the back and how we want to play, there's nothing to suggest that Fraser Forster can come in and do a decent job.
There's nothing to suggest Austin's even a Premier League quality keeper.
Yeah, that's also true. But, that's what I'm saying. There's nothing to suggest for either of them.
No, Forster, he has a wealth of experience behind him. We know what he can do.
He hasn't played a game for Spurs in over a year. Like,
apart from that Carabao Cup game.
It's like there's no need. There is literally no need to take 4 goalkeepers into Europe if you've got Vicario there. Just play Vicario if he's fit. If he's not fit, I'm sure we can deal with a game or 2 in the Europa League with Brandon Austin. Mm-hmm. There is literally no need whatsoever to take out Jed Spence in a position where we're lacking at the best of times. Never mind if Jed Spence is there or not. Like, we need him. We completely need him, and
just to take the weight off some of the other players.
Exactly, and now Destiny is pretty much going to have to play every single game, Premier League and Europa League, and what Jed Spence will get the Carabao Cup.
Well, Ali Gold was making the argument that potentially with Spence being left out now, and Reguilon, by the way, who's still here, and he's also a left back who we could use. As much as whatever you think about Reguilon, is he that bad that he can't play a few Europa League games? He probably
Once
could.
Ange has said he's not in his plans, he's not in his plans.
No, I get that. I'm just saying there's a left back there who we know could probably do a job for a few Europa League games, but that's by the by. Ali Gold was making the argument that with Spence and Reguilon now being both left out, if that means Davis becomes our backup left back for Europa League, maybe that opens the door for Dorrington to come back in potentially, and he can come in as our 4th choice centre back in Europa League and potentially partner Dragoshin. And maybe he's a player who's obviously people have forgotten about because he's been injured, but there was a lot of talk about him last year at youth level, but before those injuries, and maybe he could get some opportunities now with Spence being out, and that leaves a space for him potentially.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, but also at Dorrington, like, he's hardly even played much football for the under-21s in the last year. He's had major injury problems. I can't say because I'm not on the training pitch. I haven't seen them week in, week out. Maybe that's the feeling Ange wants to go for, and if he wants to go for that, then that's positive in terms of giving Dorrington a kind of pathway into the first team. But Davis ain't good enough at left back, especially in the way that Ange wants to play his left backs in the inverted role. It's just not his game. So I would much prefer to see Jed Spence there. There's been good talk about him from the management. There's been good talk about him from the fan base. Everyone's been excited to see Jed Spence being reintegrated this season. He seems to be happy and working really hard in training, is what we're led to believe. So what kind of message does that send to him? It sent him a really bad message saying, you've been working hard, you've been contributing in pre-season, everyone's like the look of you. And then out of the Europa League squad, just like that, in favour of Fraser Forster, it doesn't make sense.
On the flip side, does that mean Spence will get more opportunities potentially in the Premier League? And is that a good thing if he does?
I mean, it's positive in terms of... Yeah, it is positive, but he needs those minutes in the Europa League to prove that he's good enough for the Premier League. He's not going to come into the Premier League with no injuries. I think it relies on injuries for him to get starts in the Premier League. I don't think he's going to be starting ahead of Pedro Porro or Destiny Udogie anytime soon. No,
I agree with that. I'm just saying if Udogie or Porro have to play lots of Europa League games, well, if not just because of injuries, just fatigue reasons, if we're playing many games, will that naturally leave some opportunities here and there for Spence in the Premier League, maybe more than he would have gotten if he was potentially playing more Europa League games?
Potentially, but if we were going to look at it that way, I would actually prefer to leave a Porro or an Udogie out instead of a Jed Spence and give Jed Spence the complete trust and minutes in the Europa League.
Well, like Chelsea have done.
Exactly. I think Chelsea have actually done pretty good by leaving Cole Palmer out the Conference League squad. Keeps him completely fresh for the Premier League. They know they can win the majority of these Conference League games without him.
Would they have done that if it was Europa League, though?
Don't know. Maybe it depends on who they got in the Europa League. But I think when you look at the teams that we play, yeah, we do have a couple of hard games in there. But if we can't win those games without a Pedro Porro, without a Destiny Udogie, we've got some problems.
I agree. Especially Karabag, Elfsborg, all these teams who should be winning those comfortably. Regardless of what team we put out there, and should be able to put out a team, who of rotation level team that can beat these teams. But I'm just deeply frustrated for Spence. I know a lot of people I'm seeing, I put a message on Twitter saying I'm disappointed that Spence has been left out in favour of Forster, and a lot of people saying, well, you just don't understand the rules. We need homegrown players and all this kind of stuff. But the fact of the matter is, we made a choice between Forster and Spence. We could have left out Forster if we really wanted to. We didn't. We've decided to keep him on. It'll be even more frustrating if Forster doesn't even play. And when that space could have easily gone to Spence, who definitely would have gotten minutes if he was in the team. And now it's going to make his time at Tottenham even harder to get into the team. And I wonder, with the player who we know, I wouldn't say has a bad attitude, but we know he's had attitude problems in the past. It'll be interesting to see how he reacts to this news, and if he gets frustrated with it, or if he just decides to knuckle down and say, look, I'm not in the squad, but I just have to work harder to get into the Premier League team, because it's going to be a lot harder to get minutes in the Premier League than it would have been if he's in the Europa League team. So I reckon he must have assumed. Maybe Ange did have a conversation when he started to keep him, that he told him before he's going to be left out, but I reckon he thought, I'm going to be here for Europa League games. There's going to be minutes now we're in Europe for me to impress and show what I'm about. They've decided to keep me on. Andrew's talking about me publicly, saying how hard I've worked and how impressed he's been. And now they've basically cut, at least for the first half of the season, it's safe to say they've probably cut his minutes by probably over 50% just with this
maybe
decision.
more. I'll be really disappointed for him if he doesn't start that Coventry game. That Coventry game has got to be, that's the only game that you can safely say in the first half of the season that he's going to start. Literally, he has to start that Coventry game. And if he doesn't, where does that tell you in where he is in Ange's plans? He's going to be nowhere in Ange's plans.
But you just know, Spurs fans, if he starts that Coventry game and we lose, people go, oh, you should be starting your best players. It's a cup competition. How can you? What are you doing playing people like Spence? Porro has to come in. You can't be taking these games lightly. You know what Tottenham fans are like.
But that's what you have a squad for, is to maneuver around these moments, around these situations. And if you play the same players every single game, week in, week out, 2 games a week now, they're going to get burnt out. We've seen it with so many players and so many different clubs in the past. We've got 2 games a week now for the foreseeable future, for the next 6 weeks or something crazy like that. You've got all the Europa League starting to come in now after the international break. You've got the Carabao Cup, or the EFL, whatever it's called now, starting to come up with Coventry away, which you got to expect us to go, or want us to go deep in that tournament. So there are a lot of games coming up. And that's the main reason why I'm deeply disappointed that Spence isn't in the Europa League squad, because in my opinion, with the group that we have, we need to be giving a lot of our players a rest on these Thursday night games and get them ready and fit and firing for the Premier League, because we can win those games with the second string squad, or a mix and match of the first string and the second string. And now we're basically asking Pedro Porro, maybe not Pedro, but Destiny for sure, to be starting 2 games a week, pretty much.
Yeah, unless it means Davis comes in at left back and we play one of the other centre backs. And we rotate between Romero and Van de Ven, who starts in Europa League, which I guess is not beyond the realms of possibility. You have Gray, one of Romero, Van de Ven, Davis at left back, with Drakusin. And from that point of view, is it that much of a risk of burnout if you do it like that? Maybe not. Look, there are maybe a few ways you can work around it, but I just feel so sorry for Jed. So sorry for him, because he's done everything right since coming back here in the summer. And maybe something's happened behind the scenes that we don't know about, but
from what we know and what Ange has spoken about in the press, it's only been positive. It's literally only been positive. And he's spoken about players in negative lights. You know, he's spoken about Lo Celso and Reguilon, saying he's not in their plans and, you know, to that nature. But everything about Spence has been positive. So it just bemuses me. I just don't understand why he's gone this route.
Yeah.
I think it's a wrong decision.
I completely agree. But he's gone with Forster. And that's that. No, we have to move on from it. But Spence is going to have to find another way to get into this team. Yeah.
And it's going to be starting at Coventry. And if he has a really good game against Coventry, you know, everyone's going to be like, oh, why didn't you pick him for the Europa League squad and all this kind of stuff? And they're right, and they're well in their rights to do that. And Ange will need to be able to take the criticism if we do get a big injury. Like if Destiny gets injured now, like then what? Davis at left back, Spence at left back, and then Davis in the cups in the Europa League.
That's going to have to be. Well, if Destiny got injured, we'll be screwed anyway.
Yeah, true.
It's because Forster's a Celtic legend, that's why.
Is that why? Yeah, he wanted him to play that game at Ibrox just to stuff it to him.
Exactly. I couldn't resist. I couldn't resist bringing Forster back to the Ibrox just for that one moment. It had to be in the squad.
Yeah, but look, that is the situation about the Europa League squad. Let me know your reaction in the comment section below.